American football in Finland.
The voice in your ears is Perfect Pervis, and this is American Football in Finland. Today, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Coach Q and Chris Green. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on?
Hey, man, how's it going? Good to be back again. Another week in the Maple League. Let's get it.
Yeah, buddy. The AFF podcast is available wherever you listen to your podcast. We're currently available on more than 25 different platforms. The show is also available on our YouTube channel. Wherever you listen, be sure to rate us. Anything less than 5 stars will tell us that you are a hater. It's first down. We get a chance to start fresh and discuss whatever is on our minds. What's on your minds, fellas?
ELF, they had a week off last week. Back again this week. Big upset as well. The Frankfurt Galaxy beat the Vienna Vikings, who were previously unbeaten. So a bit of a shock defeat in the ELF. And the Frankfurt are really pushing for that playoff spot now, trying to make that Final Four. So interesting to see what they were bringing to the party, and being able to knock off Vienna is big for them in the playoff race.
Oh, man. We get into the gritty of the football season for Finland anyway. But, hey, American football in America just started, so that's what I'm happy about right now. Like,
I
we
forgot
got some
about
real
that.
football now. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Now I got to piggyback on what you said too. I love that. I just now thought about that. My fantasy football league is about to get started up. I already had to discipline some people and reward some people because we had some preseason adding and dropping players from rosters that's illegal, and someone put up a screenshot and someone called somebody a snitch, and it got. I'm in a 16 player league in fantasy football. And it's like a $20 buy-in, but you can win $200 around Christmas time. So that's kind of nice to have when the season's over. And someone was like, so you just going to reward the tattletale? I was like, man, I have to. This league is serious. Like, anytime you dealing with people with money, I don't care how much money it is, can't be doing all that illegal trading type stuff, especially with fantasy football. It's like, it really don't matter what you do anyways, because the player's going to do what they're going to do. I do feel for anybody that has either Deshaun Watson or Baker Mayfield.
Ooh.
I feel like you just not in a good situation. Like,
yeah,
I think I had Teddy Bridgewater last year. I feel better about that. But so the players of the week have been announced on social media channels earlier this week, but of course, we're going to explain our picks in depth outside the stats. First, let's go up with the offensive player of the week, Nolan Corporton, who had 7 receptions, 143 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I'm going to start off on Nolan by just saying, dude, calm down. Like, he was out there just showing up big play after big play after big play. Like, when the Crusaders needed something, like, he was that guy. And he's not originally a receiver. You know, he's a defensive back playing both ways. Him and his brother both, you know, sharing times and doing what they can to make this team competitive. But he's a downfield threat. He has speed, and he has really soft hands, and he's just able to get open. He got past defenders, and you give him the ball to him, he's catching it. He made one catch, which was really impressive. It was in between, like, 2 or 3 defenders. And, you know, the quarterback put it in a tight window, and he had to kind of launch to his right and dive catching it in between defenders. And it's just a very high talent type of play from someone that is not, you know, traditionally a receiver. He just really stood out this week on the offensive side to me.
I think it's the same thing, man. He was all over the place. Had one of the best games that obviously you can have as a receiver. But that's what you want to do. You want, you know, a guy like that on your offense that can put up points basically and put you in games, because Crusaders have been kind of inconsistent from game to game. So it was nice to see them have some type of, you know, progress as far as their offense. And I mean, 7 receptions, almost 150 yards, like, you can't beat that. So Nolan, he did everything he could to give his team a chance. You know, Shea had a pretty good game too. He threw over four plus touchdowns. So it was an exciting game to watch. Actually, wasn't a bad game. They were in it always until the end. Just came up short. So, but Nolan Corporton definitely deserves some offensive love this week.
Yeah, I mean, props to both the Corpening brothers. I mean, every week they continue to impress for the Crusaders. Statistically, if anything else, every time they're both putting up big numbers, whether that be on defense or offense or a mixture of both. And they're really holding it down for UNC. And it's nice to see them being a little bit more competitive, okay, albeit against the Butchers, but still a really great game. And Nolan, just like you say, that catch was crazy. Big game, 143 receiving yards and 3 TDs. Like, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? I mean, he's definitely one of the players which has stood out this season for the UNC Crusaders. It's nice to talk about them for once.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Butcher.
Something positive.
I'll say it before we talk about it. Well, that's what happened when you play Dallas Cowboys of Finland. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm back, people.
You're married. Time.
So, talking about the defensive player of the week, we went with the Kuopio Steelers defensive lineman Julian, or is it Julian? I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. I want to say Julian K. I'm going to say K. I can't pronounce his last name. The French defensive lineman who had 5 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 sack in the Steelers' destruction of the San Diego Crocodiles. Just again, I'll start it off on Julian. What I noticed was, no matter what, in about a second and a half, 2 seconds tops, number 48 was in the backfield. Like, that's just what I noticed. And like, I didn't look at the dude's stats. I was like, dude, I got to figure out how to pronounce his name. Like, I just been calling him, there's number 40 and there's number 48. I just been calling them the other guys. No offense. I've been calling them the other guys outside of Akeem. But in this game, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to learn this guy's name because he's a little too consistent. And in this game, I feel like the Crocodiles have a good offensive line, not a bad one like most teams, but they just couldn't handle the Steelers, front seven. And Julian was really the catalyst, in my opinion, for this off the edge. Actually, the other guy, the number 40, was doing okay as well, but I really felt like Julian was what drove the rest of the defensive line in this game. I felt like he put pressure and let other guys make plays, and then he was also able to make plays, which was just crazy. I was like, obviously they can't block them all. That's the problem. But he was the one that stood out to me. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, if you look at the stats, the American linebacker Colby was obviously the top stat leader for that game for the Steelers. But what a force! There's a play which I think, and you mentioned number 40 roulette as well. There was a play which I remember where both of those guys just came steaming off the edge and just got straight to the quarterback and absolutely nailed him. And like you say, 1 second he's in the backfield, like crazy speed and just. Yeah, I mean, he was a tough guy to block and very fast and explosive.
I agree with you. Very, very active defensive player. Steelers got, they got a baller in him. So ever since he's been there, he's been pretty much, shown in some highlights. He's pretty active in the run game. He helps in the pass game. It's a nice boost of energy to have on defense. And he definitely balled in this game. He was everywhere. Three tackles for losses. You can't beat that. 1 sack. I mean, that's a great game for a D lineman or a linebacker. So he definitely showed up, showed out, and, helped Kuopio get that win. So it was a good game by him.
Yeah, and that's players of the week. Both of these guys did really good, and really good to see, different guys step it up. We tried not to be too biased. We could always just give it to LeAnthony Reason over every week, but he has a good team around him and people need to be noticed. So we make sure that you guys know that we're watching more than just the normal stars in the league. Nolan excluded because he's just doing crazy things out there. So that's players of the week.
Okay, so we got the section of Inside the Numbers. Obviously, with me, Chris Green, and we're going to start with the top offensive performances this week. I've been a bit greedy and I've gone with 4 because I couldn't quite decide between the last 2. So I've gone with Shea Netter of the UNC Crusaders. He was 20 of 32 with 2 picks for 377 yards and 6 TDs through the air. The Anthony Reasonover, of course, of the Kuopio Steelers, 23 carries, 161 yards, and 4 TDs on the ground. He was a force to be reckoned with, as always. Next, we've got Seth Rollins of the Porvoo Butchers. He was 12 rushes for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then finally, Nolan Corporton of the UNC Crusaders, as previously mentioned as Player of the Week. He had 7 receptions for 143 yards and 3 TDs in the air. Defensively, we're looking at the stats here. So we've got Colby Campbell of the Kuopio Steelers. He had 7 solos, 3 assists, 0.5 TFL, a forced fumble, which he ripped out of the receiver's hands, and he recovered the fumble himself. Next up, we've got Julian Koa, also of the Kuopio Steelers. He had 4 solos, 2 assists, 3.0 TFLs, and 1 sack. And finally, we've got Timmy Nukia of the Porvoo Butchers. He had 5 solos, 9 assists, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 pick. Let's look at the best team performances. So offensively, we'll start with that. Passing yards, we had the UNC Crusaders. They had 377 yards of passing offense. Rushing yards this week, it was the Butchers with the most rushing yards. They had 289 yards on the ground, mainly through Seth Rollins and Brandon Gwinner. And then total yards, you got UNC Crusaders, who had 512 yards of offense on the day. Big day for that UNC offense. Third down conversion, we've also got the UNC Crusaders. They were 4 of 11, which worked out at 36.36%. Defensively, the Kuopio Steelers defense stood up and restricted Christian Powell and the Crocodiles to only 85 yards of passing. Zach Whitehead struggling in the passing game this week. Those Steelers defensive backs doing their thing. Rushing yards, we had the Eagles. They restricted the Roosters to only 56 yards rushing. That's 2 weeks in a row now. The Roosters have got the least amount of rushing yards. Maybe a little problem there, or maybe they're just sticking to more of the passing game. Total yards, we've got the Steelers restricting the Crocodiles to only 145 yards of offense. And then third down conversion, the Eagles restricted the Roosters to only 1 of 6, which worked out at 16.66%. And that's going to be it for Inside the Numbers.
Are you looking for quality football apparel and accessories at an affordable price? Reyrr Athletics is made for players by players. Head over to reyrr.se and get your drip today. That's REYRR.SE. And use code AFF20 to receive 20% off all Reyrr brand products. There's plenty of football going on in the world right now. There's always American football somewhere in the world. So obviously we want to talk about some of the top stories outside of the Maple League. But let's talk about the women's Maple League here in Finland that is back in action. After the World Championships, the Women's League has one more week, week 10, before they start playoffs. First game, we have the Tampa Saints versus the Helsinki Wolverines. The Saints are the 3 seed right now, and the Wolverines have secured the 1 seed. So for the Saints in this game, it's pretty much seeing how they match up against the number 1 seed, but also securing the 3 seed, because if they lose, they could drop to the 4 seed. So a loss could put them in the 4 seed potentially. The second game, the Loyal Lionesses and the West Coast Phoenix, bottom 2 teams won't make the playoffs, but they will get to play each other and see who's best. And the Lionesses have beat West Coast already this season. So West Coast has not won a game. This could be that reason. And then the last game of the weekend is the Turku Trojans versus the Mikkeli Bouncers. The Trojans are the number 2 seed, pretty much locked up, can't get moved out of it. The Bouncers are number 4 seed. Now, if the Bouncers win and the Saints lose, depending on like the ties, because they both beat each other once, I don't know what the difference is in score, they could be in 3rd place. But if they lose, they for sure will be the 4th place team. So a little bit of tension going on in the Women's Maple League for this last week, but really the teams are just gearing up for playoffs and trying to see where they fit in. And then moving to our pick'em that we're doing, that we have a bet on this between me, Ellie, and Becky. The winner gets beer from the losers. Ellie is 20-4. I'm 20-4, and Becky is 19-5. So our picks this week will probably be determining who wins this bet. And I think I'm going to win. I feel like I'm going to win.
Feeling confident, yeah. Feeling confident.
I'm better in the women's pick'em than I am the men's. Just saying.
Yeah, you are.
I was just saying. In the men's, I'm like dead last now. I be taking too many chances. I'm ride or dying with the Wolverines, and that has been helpful for me so far in the women's league.
Oh man, is it the same with the women's? I don't know much about the women's league, but is it the same with the women's league that they'll bet on the Wolverines? Or
well, the thing is, the Wolverines, you can actually depend on them in this league. Yeah, that's a shot. You can depend on them in this league. If I pick the Wolverines, I'm good to go. Trojans are also very consistent, but I've always chose the Wolverines over them this season. Just this season, because I think I went with the Trojans first because they didn't win last year. But it's been pretty consistent between these teams. The only teams that really have made a mix is the Bouncers and the Saints have kind of changed things up a little bit. And West Coast Phoenix is a good team, but they just can't get wins. I still could say this, and I feel confident. I feel like the West Coast Phoenix team is better than the Loyola Lionesses, but I just don't feel like they're able to put it together. So in that aspect, obviously they're not. I guess they could be the Dallas Cowboys of the women's league, but I won't go there that far yet. I won't go that far on them yet because I don't feel like that's fair. But let me get off of the women's league. And last thing we want to talk about in other news is international competitions. We wanted to talk about the ELF. 1 month left until they get into playoffs. They just came off a break, like Chris said earlier. Top three teams right now, you got the Vienna Vikings, the Hamburg Sea Devils, and the Barcelona Dragons are all winning their divisions and looking like contenders to go to the Elf Bowl? What's it called? The championship. Is it called the Elf Bowl? Is it the Elf Super Bowl? The Elf Champions? Whatever. To the final. Those three teams look like
I know it's in Austria.
Yeah, maybe it's called the Austrian Bowl. I don't know, but those three teams are the top looking teams. But like we said, Vienna Vikings just took their first loss, and it was a bad loss to Frankfurt, who is technically the returning champions of the league. Which, in my opinion, they're doing what we've been accustomed to seeing the Wausau Royals do in the past when they used to be in the Maple League. Is they take that break, they come back after they break, they've made a lot of changes. That's the only thing I can think that they've done to make it so dramatic in that game against the Vikings where they beat them like 42-8. But
I mean, if you look at their roster, it's really weird because they've got a lot of talent on paper, but they've been so inconsistent this season, like losing games that they shouldn't lose and then winning games that they shouldn't win. So it's you say, off that break, that break done hella good, yeah.
The break usually does well for teams, just depending on who you are. I mean, Frankfurt's always been a good organization. We know that. In terms of football, I won't speak on their, personal issues. We know that stuff as well. I won't put all that in the air right now. But I do feel that this season, you've seen kind of a flip. Like we said earlier in the season, some of the bad teams from last year are better this year. Istanbul,
Barcelona Dragons.
Exactly. And even Berlin Thunder is a little bit better than they were. The only team that really didn't make a jump was Stuttgart Surge, which I've heard horrible things about them. I'm not going to say that on the air. It's not time to talk about that. But it does lead you to believe there's some parity in the league. I don't think the Istanbul Rams situation went great. But again, Barcelona didn't look good in their first year either.
Yeah.
So it could easily be one of those situations where, when you get into this league your first year, you got to take some bumps and bruises before you figure out what works for your organization. So besides Stuttgart Surge, it just looks like a lot of parity in the league. Even when the Tyrol Raiders, who joined the league and you expected them to be, kind of like a juggernaut, they got humbled. Like there are some things they have to do in this league differently than what they did in Austria, where they were able to just kind of compete with the Vikings every every year. So it's really interesting. I've always remained the same thought on the ELF. I think it's a great professional league. It's good for the ELF. It's interesting to, be an observer of. It's not anything that I'm, emotionally, financially, or personally invested in, but I do appreciate the opportunity that those players and coaches and people involved are taking advantage of.
Yeah.
And that would be other news.
If you're listening to my voice, you're now part of the AFF community. But don't be shy about supporting us. Head over to our website and order some AFF swag. Get a t-shirt for this beautiful summer weather, or a comfy hoodie you can rock all year long. And if you really want the drip, scoop up one of our limited edition snapback caps. Everything you need to represent the AFF community can be found on our website at americanfootballinfinland.com/merch.
Well, we all know the results of last weekend's games, but let's explain which teams either won their game or which teams either lost their game. And this is win or loss. First game, Kotka Eagles versus Helsinki Roosters. Pretty easy. Roosters won. That's it. Pretty easy. Interesting thing about this game is that I was watching the game, and when I saw the Eagles, come out in the little wing T formation, start doing a little triple option, jet sweep stuff. I was like, okay, they're trying to, slow the game down. They can possess the ball longer. Then they can get in the shotgun, throw a couple passes. They have a nice rhythm to what they're doing, but they just don't have the players. They don't have the talent to compete against a team like the Roosters or pretty much most of the teams in this league. But I did like the progression that they were trying. What I didn't like in this game that kind of rubbed me the wrong way is I distinctly remember last week saying, my question to the Roosters was, can you put your foot on their neck?
No.
And they put in subs in the second half. They came out in the second half up 28-0, put in subs, only scored one touchdown. I didn't watch the second half. I don't. Yep. As soon as teams start putting in subs, I turn the TV off because now they're just inflating stats, and you don't really get to see what someone looks like against starters, and it's disappointing. And the reason I'm disappointed is because the Roosters are still not a Maple Bowl team.
Nope.
Yeah, you turn some things around. You're getting better, but the playoffs are coming. And I think next week, who do they play? They play the Crocodiles next week. So obviously you don't want anyone to get hurt. That's an important game. But you still need to work on things. There's things that you need to work on that you had time to work on that you didn't against live competition. It's different when you're in practice and going over schemes and how you're going to play and blase. But you had a whole second half to put up another 28 points. To figure out, some different things you wanted to do. And this team went and did some crazy reverse throwback pass to the quarterback where they used the center to throw the pass. I don't know if you saw that. Miko Toivonen.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
And I was like, that's just cheeky. That's just I didn't like that. I felt like that was a little bit disrespectful to the Eagles, your opponents, but also just disrespectful to the fact that are you just playing to play? Are just out there just playing football for the hell of it? Or are you working towards a goal? And I feel like
are you serious contenders this week or this year or not?
They're just having fun. And that's cool if you want to have fun, but I feel like you're wasting opportunities out there. And again, they won the game, and I guess that's all that they really care about. But now I know where they stand. And that's where the Roosters stand. They just want to win the games they can win. And that's cool. I got a lot to say about who they're playing next week. So moving on, the next game that we're going to talk about, actually, I need to do a pause. Now we'll jump to the UNC Crusaders versus the Porvoo Butchers. Who won and who lost this one? It was close, so just go either way.
Yeah, definitely a close one. I'll say the Butchers won this one. They did everything they needed to do, to win the game. It's crazy because Brendan Gwinner, at the beginning of the season, he was saying that he had something to prove. And ever since he started this season with Porvoo, like they've had a chance. You know what I mean? They were a lot better team than what I thought they were going to be. And I think partially a big part of it is because of Brandon Gwinner and the confidence he has in his play. You know, Miko Seppin making plays. But defensively, they're still young, which is why the Crusaders was able to put up the points they did. They just don't have that stout defense to stop offenses, which is why they're like in that median of, you know, mid playoff team. And but I think, you know, they did everything they needed to do to win the game. They held on. They made the plays when they needed to make them, and they got the W. So the Butchers definitely won.
Yeah, they won, but they sure look like the Dallas Cowboys do it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Dallas Cowboys of the Maple League. First, I took notes on this game, so I'm going to run it down for y'all. First of all, they jumped out 14-0 in the first quarter. And honestly, it would have been 21-0 if they didn't have a penalty that brought back a Brandon Gwinner touchdown. He ran the ball in, scored, but then there was holding or something. So then they ended up turning it over in the red zone, and then UNC scores. So now it's 14-7. And then they came right back and scored again, and it's 21-7. Like you said, their defense, I mean, they just don't got what it take because their defense just kept the other team in the game. And penalties. Porvoo could have won this game by 3 or 4 touchdowns. It was for penalties. Legitimately, penalties put them in a bad spot. And I think, like what you said, their defense isn't good. Like, that's just, it is what it is. Your defense isn't good, but your offense can score. As long as you got Brandon Gwinner, you can run and pass. And I feel like they just not utilizing that complement strategy as a team. Because that offense, they could drive the ball a little bit more, but sometimes they throw it too much or don't rely on the run game. Don't use Brandon's legs. They have him throwing the deep ball to Lucas Earla, who's a phenomenal receiver. But from what I've seen, him and Lucas don't always connect on those deep balls. And a lot of times you don't have to throw those routes, but they throw it so much. And obviously they're stretching the field, and it leaves room for Miko Seppin to come and do the middle and intermediate routes like he does. And he saved some plays with some acrobatic. That one catch that he had in this game, what was it, in the fourth quarter? Yeah. Where he went up and got that thing. Ooh, Miko. If we was doing play of the year, that's the one for me. It was in the fourth quarter with like 4 minutes left. Miko went up and got that thing. It was great. But what it shows about their offense is the inconsistencies, like what you said. But honestly, the inconsistency is their own fault. Like the UNC did nothing defensively to stop them from scoring. They could have, they scored 49 points. They could have scored 60. And so the only reason they didn't score was when they had penalties or when their play calling was so inconsistent that they couldn't put together a drive. And that's just that middle of the road, all potential, not enough production team they've been all year. That's why like their record of 4-6 is very accurate of how they play. They easily could be 6-4, but instead they're 4-6, you know? And even in this game, I felt like their offense was really good. I just want to give a shout out to Seth Rollins, their running back. Okay. He's small. He's small in stature, but them boy legs be moving. Because when he gets the ball, like half a second later, he's 5 yards past line of scrimmage. Like like his legs are small and they don't look like they're moving fast, but he eats up ground so quickly. And he's just a burst of energy. And I think it's really good that they've added him to the team. If they would have had him at the beginning of the season, we could be looking at a 6-4 team. Because I feel like their run game is much improved. And there's a lot they could do with their run game, but they go away from it a little too early sometimes. And, you know, that's how they end up in tight games instead of this being a blowout game. Because it was, 28-28 at halftime. They should have been up by 3 touchdowns. It should have been 28-7. But, again, last thing I'm saying about it is that Brandon Gwinner looking like an MVP out there.
Oh, yeah.
Legitimately looking like an MVP. I think there's only one other person, and we all know who that other person is that would beat him for MVP, but that don't mean we don't respect what he's doing out there. He looks really good. But that's all I got on the game. But I mean, hats off to Crusaders too. Oh, I didn't even talk about the Crusaders. Let me jump on the Crusaders while I'm here. Hats off to the Crusaders. My boy Shea Netter, he was out there threading the needle in that first half. Like I wrote on my notes here, damn, Shea looks very, very impressive with accuracy, and he's getting pressure. So this guy, when he says hut, it's only a matter of time before the Butchers just overpower his offensive line. But he still sit in there and be throwing dimes as he's getting hit. Like a lot of his highlights and even the photos you see online, this dude is letting the ball fly and then getting hit in the face. I don't know how he does that. I think that's very impressive because I know me, for one thing, I'm not throwing that knowing I'm going to get hit in the face. And then two, even if you are throwing it, how do you make these very accurate, tight window throws? Like he's not throwing it to wide open receivers a lot of times. A lot of times he's putting it in spots where only his guys can get it. And he's fortunate that his receivers are going and get it, but he has to put it somewhere first. And he's doing a really good job of it. And it's really impressive to see that even though, UNC isn't a great team, they have this type of power and capability to put up points based on a quarterback who is really, I want to say, underrated in this league.
Gotcha.
Like when the season's over, people aren't going to be, oh, Shea Netter came here and he just blew it up because his team situation. But if you watch the film, he's a lot better than I thought he was. I've seen him play in Germany, and I thought he was an okay quarterback, but he does things that are almost impossible to do if you don't have a certain level of talent and skill that he has. Yeah. So it's hard to, point that out all the time. And this game was just really evident of it because he put the ball in spots and did it against pressure. He avoids pressure. He's elusive. But, of course, I got to keep it 100. There's some drawbacks. Second half, he came out and threw 2 picks, 2 drives, 2 picks. And throws that just didn't make sense to make, and that's just, it is what it is. That will probably bring his ceiling down a little bit. But again, just like UNC, even if they're not good, they have the potential. They have that high ceiling that they could be at any point. They could put up 40 points in the game. I don't think they can stop somebody from scoring 40, but I do think at any point they could put up 40. And, I mean, their secondary isn't horrendous either, so you have to respect that, but their run defense just isn't that great. So that's all I want to say. Just give a little love to Shea Netter out there. We see you doing your thing. Hey. It's hard to be a quarterback in this league, and he's doing what he can with what he got. Yeah. Even UNC, the whole team, that whole team was full of guys just doing more than they should. And it's just really good that they can compete, unlike some of the teams in the league. I won't say any names. So that's all I got for it. The next game is going to be the Senio Crocodiles, who played against the Kuopio Steelers. We all know how it went down, but Chris, just for, our own sake, tell us who won or lost the game. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, the Kuopio Steelers definitely won this game. My question was, it's the same question I asked when the two met earlier in the season. Christian Powell, can you outplay Anthony Reasonover? The answer again was no.
God, people are killing me on these questions. Yeah, y'all know we ask these questions. You got to step up.
Yep. I mean, I don't feel like the Crocodiles gave Christian Powell enough touches. Like 13 carries he had and 2 catches in the past game. So I don't think he saw enough of the ball. You got CP15. You need to be given the ball at least 25 times a game, whether that be rushing and passing. But you need to get the ball in his hands 25 plus. Reasonover, he had 23 carries. Exactly what you expect on 1 catch. And he produced. He put, I think there was a play, and I think it only went for about 15 yards, but he put Sido Jallo just on skates. Like he just went, just cut out and went fast and then made someone else miss. And then one of the other things as well about Reasonover is he's a real good protector in the pass game, which goes unnoticed sometimes. He sent Kobe Mako a one-way ticket to Cut Block City. Yeah, this guy came screaming through the line and he just upended flip his shit. He just flipped over, man. I remember that play on the goal line. I think it was a pass complete to Yanni Lindquist down to about the 1 yard line, I think it was. Okay. And he just absolutely smoked him.
What's super interesting.
The Kuopio Steelers, they didn't really need to.
Oh, I couldn't understand what you said. Sorry. Can you hear me?
The Corpio, yeah. You know, yeah.
Okay.
The Corpio Steelers didn't really need to lean on their pass game much this game, but they've shown that they can do that when they need to. And in this game, they didn't need to do it. They just said, there you go, Lee Anthony, go do your thing. And he did his thing.
Worst part. Oh, not the worst part, but it was a little disheartening. When Reasonover was just running, his like body
language.
His body language was like, oh, they're not even like testing me. Like it was like he was like, oh, I gotta go through these motions and put up all these yards, and they can't do anything about it. You know, like when a player is playing, you know, say someone like me, like when I was in like middle school and I had to play football with my little brother, you know, and it's like, I mean, he's okay, but he can't hang. So it's like after a while, I'll get bored. And that's what it looked like he got. He got bored. You could tell by he scores a touchdown. He just gives the ball back and then just goes to the sideline. Like there's not even any elation or anything because he's like, yeah, I could have done that in my sleep. He breaks a tackle, he jukes somebody, and he's surprised because he's like, really? That worked? Like, really? You just can't tackle me? And then he scores touchdowns. And that's, again, I'm not trying to come at the Crocodiles defense. I do think it's a decent defense, but I just think that as a player, like Reasonover is just a little bit better than what they can throw at him. I haven't seen any defense that can contain him yet, really.
I mean, from a neutral perspective, this was the game of the week, and it's the game that we wanted to see because the Steelers are 1 at the moment, the Crocodiles are 2. It didn't really live up to any hype, if I'm honest. It just goes to show that the Steelers are that much ahead of it, and they're just running away with the league at the moment. And, you know, if the Wolverines don't sort their stuff out.
I disagree with running away with the league. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Wolverines. We always bring up the Wolverines. There's no way to avoid it.
They didn't even play, and we bring it up.
Didn't even play. You know, it is what it is. But I think that when I think about the Crocodile Steelers and then I think about Wolverine Steelers, I do think the Wolverines have a closer match. Like this game kind of showed it that the Crocodiles didn't play bad in this game. I honestly don't believe they played bad. But their defense had no answer for Reasonover. And then the passing game, they didn't really, you know, I mean, the Steelers could do whatever they wanted to in the pass game if they wanted to. Like you said, they just didn't have to. But again, when the Wolverines play them, they match up better talent-wise. And it's just one of those things. And I don't know if I said this on the podcast yet this year, but the Crocodiles are 1 receiver away from being a team that can take the Steelers to the brink. And when I say that, I think that I'm going to say the name. I think someone like Alpha Jallo is the person that they need. I think they don't have him. Yeah, they ain't getting him. But they don't have I think Zach Whitehead is doing awesome this season. I love his game. Even offensively, I love the play calling. I like that they're mixing it up. I think 15 touches is okay for Powell if you're able to complement it. But the problem is you can't depend that much on the Sarkula brothers. And I like them both. The number 17 Sarkula, he's finding his way in my heart recently. I'm loving the way he's playing. But he's not that dynamic playmaker that's going to change the game for you, or when you need a pass, if you need a big play away from Christian Powell, he's not going to be that guy. It is what it is. Everybody's not that guy. But if they had that guy, it would put pressure on teams like the Steelers to score. The Steelers were like, we're going to score, so we'll just run the ball and get out of here. But the Crocodiles weren't able to pressure them. Go ahead.
So you say they need Alpha Jolly, right? Obviously, he's not available. He's with the Vassal Royals. You need to call your guy, man, Mr. Matthew Retzlaff.
I was just about to say, I got another guy that that was exactly the name.
You need to get that boy on the phone, man. And I knew you were thinking of it. That's why I said it. They need to get that boy on the phone.
I think they couldn't because I think Powell is still American this year. I think that might be a situation that they need to find a dual or a European guy or something. I mean, it's just not.
He would slide right in there nicely. Like,
yeah, it's just not a lot of what's it called? It's not a lot of Timothy Thomas and Spencer Cutlands out there anymore, guys. Not willing to come out here, even though
you can't anymore, can you? You can't cite UK guys because they
No.
count as an American, which is
yeah.
the stupidest rule I've ever heard as well, by the way.
Well, I mean, but
Stupid.
then you're not going to find like skill player Europeans that can play how you want to. You can go to France and hope you get lucky, but I mean, even then, you don't really get anything better. And that's the issue that the Crocodiles have, because they've been heavy on having EUs and UK guys kind of being their skill players, and I still feel like their defense is good. Sometimes you just don't match up well. They don't match up well against the Steelers defensively. They match up well against the Wolverines. They match up well against UNC, against the Roosters, against who else plays? The Butchers. Yeah, they match up well against all those teams defensively. And offensively, they got to pick their times when they can beat those teams. And I think they do a good job of that. I really like their offensive play calling and how they mix it up. It's just you're not getting the success that you want, and it's not because of the play calling or the situations. It's just because of the talent on the field. And they just are missing a little bit of talent, which is crazy because we're talking about the number 2 seed. And we're saying they're missing talent. But, I mean, they have enough talent to beat the Roosters easily. I think that if they go against the Roosters in the playoffs, it's not a problem. But, again, they play against the Wolverines. Talent is an issue. They play against the Steelers. Talent is an issue. And in this game, it was one of those games where they had opportunity to score. They could have kept this game closer than it was, but they didn't. And I don't really blame them. It was one of those things like, even if you would have kept this game close, you never would have had a chance to win it. So try things and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, oh, well, now you're down by 3 touchdowns. As soon as you got down by 1 touchdown, the game was over. So what did it really matter? You just got to keep playing. And they did that. But I think the Steelers are definitely set up now to cruise their way to playoffs. It'll be interesting for the next 2 weeks for the Steelers to see how they play these next 2 weeks. Do they go the Roosters route, play one half, then put in subs, or do they put their foot on the neck and let Reason overplay 3 out of the 4 quarters? I don't know. Interesting. But that's win or loss. I guess we'll talk about that when we get to tough questions next. All right, let's get into it. Tough questions. What are some questions that teams need to answer in this upcoming week of games? We'll start with the first game, which is going to be Wolverines versus the Eagles. Chris, who you got a question for?
I got a question for the Wolverines. Of course I do. Wolverines, how have you spent your bye week? What have you done on offense to show us that you are legitimate contenders to the Maple League this season? And you can show us in this game because you can try some things against the Eagles, see if it works. If it works and you like it, then maybe you can try against some of these tougher teams. So how have you used the bye week? Have you used it well?
My question will be for the Eagles. It will be, can you play spoiler? I mean, that's what you're playing for right now. Can you upset the balance of things? This is marked off as a win for the Wolverines. It's already on the calendar. Like, we have it in pencil, but we're ready to put a marker on there as soon as the game starts or ends. But can you make that a mistake? Can you upset this team that had a week off, has shown plenty of vulnerabilities? Like, the Wolverines are not Goliath. Like, they're beatable. They're beatable, but do you have what it takes to give them your everything and beat them? And honestly, why not? This is it. You got 2 more weeks. Both of these are your opportunities. Actually, no, this is the Eagles' last game. Oh, shoot. I'm looking at the schedule. This is it. It's not win or go home. It's go home no matter what. So you might as well, last hurrah, you might as well go to Helsinki, put your best foot forward and show us what you got. I mean, this is your last chance to get a win in the Maple League this season. Could be your first and only win in the Maple League. Most likely again relegated next season. So I think it's a perfect opportunity. Can you play spoiler? This is a perfect opportunity. There's no downside to anything you try in this game. Except
I can answer that question now. Nope.
Don't give him a chance. Oh man. Only thing I would say that I would not suggest the Eagles try to do is anything that is, illegal, illicit, or shady. Don't try starting fights or getting players ejected from the Wolverines or something like that. Have some class, but I would say play to the whistle. I'd say make there be a couple of, when you were blocking too long plays. I'm okay with that. I would say show up and show this team that you're still a team and they need to take you seriously. Of all the teams in this league, the Wolverines are the one team that will, they're willing to play down to your level. So you have a chance. And I feel that is 100% true. I think coming off a bye week, this is the perfect opportunity. So again, my question is, can you play spoiler? Next game is Kuopio Steelers versus the Porvoo Butchers. Who you got a question for, Chris?
So my question is going to be for the Steelers. Steelers, how are you going to approach this game? We kind of touched on it previously in the last segment, but are you going to play your starters? Are you going to try some new things? Do you need to try some new things for the playoffs, in preparation for the playoffs? Because all the teams have played you twice now. What are you going to put in to maybe change it up if you need to? Or are you just going to give Lee Anthony reason over the ball and just let him go to town? So are you going to try anything different in preparation for the playoffs?
My question for the Butchers would actually be, I'm trying to phrase it correctly. My question would be, no, that's not the way to say it. I'm just going to say it the way I'm thinking. Do you think there's a chance? That's my question. Do you think there's a chance? Because you're 4-6, you have 2 weeks left. If you win both of these and the Wolverines lose both of their games, you'd be tied, but they have tiebreakers. So I don't know. I don't think playoffs is in the storyline.
I think we said this last week. I think mathematically they're out now.
Yeah, even if they tied at 6-6, they don't have any tiebreakers, that's the biggest problem. You haven't beat any of the teams that are above you, so I don't think you could do anything about that. But I still would play is there a chance? Is there a chance that you're better than what you have shown so far? Maybe that's how you can look at it. I've called you the Dallas Cowboys of the Maple League. I still hold that to be true. This is a good team. The Butchers is a good team. They should have beat the Crusaders by 3 touchdowns, but they didn't. They should have beat
the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys. They do that to you.
Classic Cowboys.
They're a good team, but don't live up to their potential. They should have beat the Crocodiles of all teams in the first week of the season. They let them get away with it. They let them get away with a field goal. They let them throw an out route with less than a minute left in the game. They let them throw an out route and get down the field and kick a field goal. I'm always going to go back to that. First game of the season. You got to be ready. And this team has always been good at times and just not good at others. And it's really disappointing because I feel like Brandon Gwinner has had almost an MVP type season this year. Legitimately, every time I watch him, I'm like, he might be the best player in the league. And then obviously I remember that Lee Anthony Reasonover is playing. But, if I acted like, the Steelers didn't exist, he'd be on my list as probably number 1 or number 2. Just based on how he handles his team and how he gives this team a chance. I just feel like the rest of the team isn't supporting him the way he needs to be supported. But this is one of those games. Maybe you don't beat the Steelers. Maybe you don't. But I tell you this much. If they come out with their backups, you make them put in their starters.
Yeah.
If that's what you got to do. You have to make this a game. You can't let these last 2 weeks of games be cakewalk for anybody. Eagles and Butchers are in a very similar situation. You're playing for pride. And if you're not playing for pride, don't show up on the goddamn field. Like, that's all I'm saying is that go out there, play football, See what happens. You never know. Maybe there's some weird rules in SAJL, and if you're at 6-6 and you got a certain amount of difference in points in the league, that it doesn't matter that you lost to the Wolverines or something. Who knows? You never really know. I'm just saying. Maybe there's a chance. Do you think there's a chance? If you think there's a chance that you can prove that you're better than what your record is showing, this will be it. If you beat the Steelers in this game, whether they have backups or starters, if you beat the Steelers, it will prove that you had more potential that you didn't play up to throughout the season. And it gives you something to hang your hat on as you go into the offseason. And that's all I want for them guys, just to prove that they're the Dallas Cowboys. Good team, just can't do it when I need it. Inconsistent. Now we'll talk about the Helsinki Roosters versus Seinäjoki Crocodiles this weekend. And let's remember that both of these teams are 7-3. Q, who do you have a question for?
You know, my biggest question is for the Crocodiles. They're in the gauntlet of games right now. I mean, playing,
yes,
you know, the top teams right before the playoffs. So these are a lot of brutal games physically and mentally. But these are the type of games that you want to go through going into the playoffs. If you can, even if you don't necessarily win them, if you can go into these games executing, putting up points, and maybe some of your players maybe, you know, not really playing or healing up maybe for the playoffs. It's a very important game still for both sides. But for me, I think the Crocodiles, what are we going to see going into the playoffs? Are we going to see more of Powell? Are we going to see them open it up, Whitehead open it up on the offense? Because they have the players to win the game. Let's not get it twisted. Any given day with the Crocodiles can be a different game. Sometimes they're like really on, and then sometimes they're a little inconsistent. But this is not the team that I would want to play going to the playoffs. Or I wouldn't want to. Yeah, I wouldn't want to play the Crocs going into the playoffs right now because they're looking to make something happen. You know, like it's like they're trying to spoil something for the Roosters, and they're trying to gain something for themselves. So this is a dangerous team right now where they're sitting. I mean, record-wise, I think this is one of the Crocs' best records since Spencer Cutler and Timothy Thomas.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's those days. So Crocodiles isn't a slouch of a team. They're not always pretty, but they're getting W's, and that's what you want with. So this game will probably be, to me, a game of the week. It'll be the game definitely to watch. You know, and I think everybody will be excited to see like what happens in this game. So, Crocodiles, are you ready? Basically,
my question would be for the Roosters, and I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it because I never know how to phrase these questions. I know what I want to know, but I'm trying to make it in the form of the question. I'd be putting myself in a box here, but my question for the Roosters would be, you know, can you prove it? Can you prove that you belong in this Maple Bowl conversation that we're having? When we think about, you know, the top two teams, we think Steelers at 1. Subjectively, you would say Wolverines at 2 and then Crocs. But we've seen the Crocs can beat the Wolverines. So maybe it's Crocs then Wolverines. But you don't really put the Roosters in the conversation. Beating the Crocodiles this weekend, that would put them in the conversation. And also, it would do a great thing for the playoff race. Because if the Roosters win this game, they go 8-4. Just to put this in there, you need to beat the Crocs by 12 because they beat you by 12 last time. They need to at least beat them by, I guess, 13 to have a tiebreaker. And if they were to do that, and then the Crocs win the last game, Roosters could win, or they could actually lose their last game against the Steelers, no problem, and the Wolverines win out. If everybody's 8-4 and the Roosters beat the Crocs, then everybody has a tiebreaker on everybody.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, because the Crocodiles have tiebreaker over the Wolverines. The Wolverines have tiebreaker over the Roosters because they beat the Roosters by more than the Roosters beat them. So if the Roosters can beat the Crocs by more than what the Crocs beat them last time, all three teams would have beaten each other enough that the tiebreakers is tied. And normally, I don't know, and don't take my word for this, but normally when it's like a 3-way tie for something in the SAJL, there's a coin flip.
Yeah.
I would just love, and this is why my question for the Roosters is, can you prove it? I would love there to be a 3-way tie for second place and second, third, and fourth be chosen by coin flips. So we could be looking at the Roosters jumping up to second place based on coin flip, and maybe the Crocs being fourth place based on a coin flip. Like that would be crazy if in 2 weeks from now the Crocodiles were the fourth place team. Like most of the scenarios you look at, the Crocs are 2, 3 at worst if they lose, but it's actually possible that if the Roosters win this game and put up enough points, not that whole put in your backups when you're winning stuff, but if the Roosters win this game and put up enough points, they could be setting up a 3-way tie that boosts them to second place and home field advantage.
Man, it'd be crazy. It'd be crazy.
That would change my that's just craziness. That's what it should be. But yeah, that's the tough questions. And I mean, that's the whole thing about the playoffs that's coming up is these next 2 weeks. Actually, I feel like this game is the pivotal game.
Yeah.
If the Crocodiles win it, Roosters can't do better than 8-4, but they wouldn't have any tiebreakers. So it doesn't even matter their last game. Even if they lost it, they still be the 4 seed. But if the Roosters win it, how much they win it by, and next week's games actually count. Because if the Roosters win this one and next week, that would make them 9-5, and they'd actually be the 2 seed.
Yeah.
And then going into next week, they're playing the Steelers. Steelers might not care.
Yeah, they definitely probably not playing, the whole game anyway.
So So for the Roosters, they got to go all in on this game to force all the other teams to play their last games as well. But if the Roosters lose, playoffs are set, pretty much, unless the Butchers play spoiler in the last week. But I'm not trusting that. Dallas Cowboys don't really do that type of stuff at the end of the season. But that's the tough questions. That'll be it.
Look good, play good. It's as simple as that. And Reyrr Athletics will help you look good in their fully customizable team uniforms. Made by players, for players. Reyrr Athletics produces high-quality uniforms for teams all over Europe. Reyrr also allows teams to design custom apparel for comfortable travel and workout purposes. Visit Reyrr.se today to take your team to the next level. Stay sharp.
Maple League teams are back in action on Thursday with the Wolverines versus the Eagles. Then the Steelers and the Butchers play on Friday with the Roosters versus Crocodiles as the final game on Saturday. Our panel of football enthusiasts will pick winners for this week's game on our Instagram account at American Football in Finland. Feel free to find us in the comments with your thoughts. Right now, our rankings, I think this is how it's going to finish because I feel like for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be straight shot. Everybody makes the same picks. Chris Green, 33-3. That's impressive to only get 3 games wrong out of 36. That is impressive.
There we go.
And everyone listening or anyone watching on the line, you can say what you want to, but that's impressive. And ain't nobody else getting numbers like that. And if you are, you're not putting it up every week where people can just talk trash about it like we are. So I don't want to hear anything from anybody. Actually, if you got something to say, you can say it. It's cool. I'm okay with that. And then Finland Swami is 30-5. Spencer's 31-5. 31-5. He's 30-5 also. He can't be 31-5. Right? He can't be 31-5.
36 games. It should be.
Oh, so Swami's 31-5 as well then. I must have wrote the numbers down wrong. Because Swami was 1 game behind you, and now he's 2 games behind you because last week he got the 1 game wrong. Yeah, I just didn't write his numbers right. All right, I mean, correct that. Finland Swami is 31-5. Spencer is 31-5. Perfect Pervis myself, I'm 30-6, and Coach Q is 30-6. That's still impressive. 30-6. Yep. I mean, look, 30 out of 36. What's that in quick math? That's like 5 out of 6. Hold up. I don't know what kind of numbers that go to. 5. I don't know. But we
About
got a lot of them right.
83%.
Yeah, 80% right. Gosh, that's tough. Well, I still feel like I could have done better if I wouldn't have took some chances.
Don't give me that.
I could have done better. I just didn't. I took chances and I was burned, you know? When I chose the Crocodiles to win, they lost. I chose the Wolverines to win, they lost. So it's like, what you gonna do? Those are 2 and 3, and they're supposed to be 2 or 3, you know? A couple times I chose the Roosters to win, they won. So that was good.
I always get I say this in our chat all the time. I always get scared when Finland Swami picks an upset because most of the time they're right. But this season they've been wrong every time on the upset picks, which is quite interesting. They picked the Crocodiles to beat the Steelers, and I was like, oh no, they're on that voodoo shit again. But the Steelers pulled it out.
It's just one of those things. Sometimes you just hope. Sometimes you make picks and you're just hoping that, you know, they come through and upset the balance of things. But as we've said before, probably not on the podcast, but we're being a little more open on podcast now, so I'll say it on the podcast, is pretty much – oh, crap, my phone's on. Didn't know that. Pretty much after the first couple of weeks, after everybody plays everybody about once, you kind of know how it's going to go. In the second half of the season, look at it. Really, the only shakeup was the Crocs beating the Wolverines, and then the Roosters beating the Wolverines. So beating the Wolverines was only shakeup. Other than that, teams are winning what we expect them to win. The Crusaders only beat the Eagles. The Eagles beat nobody.
That's 2 of my 3 L's as well. The damn Wolverines screw me over twice.
I told y'all you can't be living on the Wolverines. They will set you up. But also, I do feel that if the Dallas Cowboys of the Maple League would have won a couple of games, I'd have more wins or more losses. I don't know, but it would have changed the whole landscape if the Butchers could beat somebody.
Picking the Dallas Cowboys, man. Don't rely on the Cowboys.
I don't think it was me. I really think it was like Spencer or somebody that picked them when they played like the Roosters or something. And I think I said
the other week.
I think I picked against them, but I thought they were going to win, if that makes any sense. It's like, I feel like they can win, but I'm not going to chance it because they're the Dallas Cowboys of the Maple League. If everybody would take that same approach with the Wolverines, you know, we all could have got the games right. Who knows? Because if you got those 2 games wrong, everybody probably got those 2 games wrong, and then we all got other games wrong. I don't know. We're over talking it. Let's get out of here. That's it for this episode of American Football in Finland. Hope it was worth the listen. Any last words before we get out of here?
Hey, you know, like as always, looking forward to, you know, this week's games. We got the Roosters game, you know, the Crocs, a classic rivalry. I won't say cross-town rivalry. I'll say cross-country rivalry. It's a long trip, but, you know, we're just looking forward to this ending of the season, getting ready for the playoffs. I hope everybody's excited as we are to see how this plays out. We got a lot of people, a lot of words invested in this season. So we're coming down to crunch time right now. So, you know, good luck to everybody, man. Give us everything you got, man. We want to see.
Well, man, I'm up early this morning recording this podcast. I'm off to Egypt today. 11 nights vacation. Can't wait. It's going to be like 39, 40 degrees in the heat. Just chilling for a vacation. It's been, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 years since I've been on a summer holiday, so I can't wait. It's going to be decent.
Is it going to be like a dry heat or like
it should be a dry heat, not humid. Yeah, it'll be dry over there, so it's not as bad. Like humid. We've had some crazy heat here in the UK the last 2 weeks. It's been like 35, 36 degrees some days, and it's been really humid. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the holiday, and I think we're expecting some rain this week in the UK as well, so I've timed it perfectly.
Yeah, you leave it in the UK and you go to Egypt and have fun out there. I'm excited to get to the playoffs. Honestly, I feel like the season is dragging on. Let's just get to it. I'm excited that the women's are going to start pretty soon, so I'll get more into the women's league as they get into the playoffs, and we'll have more content and stuff coming out this weekend, and just keep it up with everything. So it'll be pretty cool. And just one last shout out about the Turkey Bowl coming up, guys. We're doing this thing where if you're in Finland, you can sign up early for the Turkey Bowl, and it's a little bit cheaper for a team. It's like $150, I think, to sign up a team. But also, we are accepting international teams. So, Chris, if you got a squad and want to come out to Finland in November, we playing indoors. So you want to bring a squad out here.
I might have to let my flag team know, man. I'm playing flag in the UK now. I don't know if you know, but
I figured you were, but
I'm playing flag now, Division 1 for a bit of football.
Tell them to bring it. They can come out here and take this L. And we play. They take an L. That's what's gonna happen. They come out here and take an L.
If I'm coming out there, though, I want to be playing for you guys.
Now you can play for us, but then you're gonna have that loyalty problem, because then you're gonna have to go back to the UK and they're gonna be like, "So you just went over there, gave us an L, and now we're supposed to pass you the ball." Yeah. If you want them problems, no problem. You're definitely welcome to play on Team Revolution, because we're relaunching this year. Shout out to what's her team called? Is it Lions Flag Football Team? You know who you are, but that's the team that basically won it last year and took the title from the AFF Revolution. So we'd like to get our trophy back and our first place medals. So that's who we're putting the target on this year, is the Flag Lions football team. So it is what it is. Okay. So if you enjoy the show, please follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. And don't forget to rate us 5 stars as well. Anything less tells us you are a hater. You can follow us on the gram and Facebook at American Football in Finland. By following us on all channels, you have a chance to win football merch provided by our sponsors at Reyrr Athletics. Be sure to follow the instructions in the episode description below. Until next time, never forget
T.
F.
We go.
American football in Finland.